Hey everybody, welcome to the Let It Shine podcast. This is Donna Howell. Thanks so much for joining in. I'm sitting here looking at a sunset, and the sun is so beautiful in the middle, and then the sky as the sun's going down is all streaked with pinks and blues and grays, and it's just gorgeous. But you know, sometimes this time of day for people I've read can be sort of melancholy, the dusk part of day. And then I know waking up sometimes in the middle of the night. Have you ever had you just wake up and I call it the heebie-jeebies. You just start thinking, what is my life all about? Why am I even here? What is my purpose? And then you might think about what you did that day. You know, when you're a teenager, life is kind of fun. You have things to look forward to. I mean, you have to go to school and do your projects and such, but you look for the weekend. Maybe I'll see that cute guy, or maybe my girlfriends and I'll go to a movie. And you always have things to look ahead to. So maybe you don't think so much about what your life is all about. Then maybe you go to college or into that time period of your life when you're transitioning out of high school and not quite full responsible adult yet, and you are still looking forward. Maybe you still have classes and you have to work on that paper, but you're involved in some activities. You and your friends are going to go to the ball game. So again, you're sort of forward looking. But then you go, you graduate and you move into a job, which you've always been kind of excited about, but now your life kind of gets to be a routine. You get up, you go to work, then you come home, and you get paid, and that's great, but then you have an apartment, so you have to start paying bills. So in this part of life is when I notice a lot of people stop and wonder what their real purpose is. Is this really all there is? And it's normal to have those questions, and it's normal to ponder what your life is going to be, and if you're satisfied with it. Well, then you move into the next phase. Maybe you get married and you have a family, and then you really have to get into a routine. When the baby's little, you're in that routine of changing the baby, feeding the baby, play with the baby, then it goes to sleep, and you rest a little bit, but you start all over again. And then your kids get into activities, they in your 40s maybe, and you're running them to their sports and their activities. But still, your life is kind of becoming a pattern, because to get all these things accomplished, you have to have some sort of regular schedule. And at some point, you say, really, is this all that my life is about? Just going around in kind of like a gerbil in his little cage where he goes around and around the wheel? Sometimes it feels that way. Well, I have a passage that I like to look at that concerns these big questions, and really I think answers the big questions of life. Why am I here? Who am I? Where am I going with my life? What is my real purpose? And that is Ecclesiastes. In Ecclesiastes 1 through 11, Solomon reminds us that life is wearisome. He learns that there are two kinds of wisdom. There's worldly wisdom, and then there's spiritual wisdom. He decides that life is vanity. If it's this here under the sun is what we're focusing on. The here and now is a vicious cycle. Get up, go to work, come home, sleep, do it again. At the end of the day, what have we really accomplished? And he says generations come and go, and eventually you're even forgotten. And that's true. You think about, you can name back your great-grandparents, but you probably can't name back your great-great-great-parents and know much about them. And that's the futility and the frustration of life under the sun. But There's life that's beyond the sun, the spiritual, the heavenly. Hard things in this life, I think, teach us that answers are really not found here under the sun. And that was probably God's intent, to give us opportunities to learn not to rely on ourselves or this world for our answers. And in Ecclesiastes 2:1-11, God allows Solomon to have really endless earthly treasures to try and find this meaning to life. He was given, I think, as our example, so that though we may not have all these treasures, we can watch and learn how they affected his life. It was a grand search for happiness is what he did, and you see people today who have that same search. So he first learns life is just a cycle of the same things over and over. He says, really, there's nothing new under the sun. And then he gets bored and he tries pleasure. He can have any woman he wants. He can have anything he wants. And, that doesn't work either. You might fill in this blank in this question. If I only had blank, I'd be happy. How would you fill that in? Oh, if I only had money, enough money. Well, Solomon had it. It didn't solve this longing. Think of all the wealthy folks today who have miserable lives. Well, how about fame? If I was just famous, I'd walk down that red carpet. Everybody would be reading about me in the magazines. Well, Solomon had worldwide fame. People came from all over just to listen to him and observe him. Well, maybe you said if I just had earthly wisdom, if I had that PhD, then I could get the job I wanted, or people would really listen to me and I could really contribute. Well, no one was wiser than Solomon, but it didn't answer the meaning of his life. Maybe you'd even fill that blank in if I only was married, or if I only had a family, or if I only had that house, then I would be satisfied. Well, from people who've experienced that, they can tell you, no, that's not where the answer to our purpose in life comes from. He does remind us, Solomon, to enjoy the good things God has given us in this life, but this too is fleeting. It's not going to last. So, life is some good. There's really good times and some really bad times. But really, all that is vanity. But wait, there is hope. Ecclesiastes 12. Now we're getting to the answer to the big question of life, the solution to our problem. After being young and old, when you are starting to decay and go back to dirt, Solomon says everything is vanity. If we only focus on this life under the sun, it is a vapor, here 1 minute, gone the next. If God isn't your life, this is a pretty gloomy outlook for you. Really, this is all that you're going to get. There's really nothing here for man without God in the picture. So Solomon concludes with the famous words and the answer to who am I and why am I here and where am I going. Ecclesiastes 12:13. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole of man. This is the entirety of man. This is what it's all about. That's it. That's the answer. God has placed eternity, a longing in our heart. When we were created in his image, he placed this in our heart. Ecclesiastes 3:11, he has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity in man's heart. So, okay, now you know what those longings and those feelings and the need to satisfy that emptiness, that is eternity. That is God in your heart. And until you come back into a relationship with him, you will not be complete. All of us who have gone away from him and have tried our own way and have sinned, that have come back to him, know the difference between living in darkness without him and living in light. So now what do? Well, now we go about learning about this amazing Creator who has put this longing in us for eternity. We learn about how He loved us and how He is seeking a relationship with those who will go after the spiritual contentment rather than the physical. So whether it comes with many heartaches in this life or with the blessings poured out on all, the peace that passes understanding will endure. When your heart is joined to His as His child, you now know your full purpose for being here. You learn that serving others is fulfilling. You learn about Jesus, and as you become more like Him, you learn your purpose is to shine for others, to bring them this joy that you have found. You may deal with cancer, abuse, addiction, broken relationships, but by viewing your eternal purpose, now you can deal with those things. You are ready to put on the whole armor of God. Psalm 36, 8-9, listen to this beautiful passage. You give them drink from the river of your delights. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light do we see light. Thanks for joining me today. Let's live in the light. See you next time.